age.
I even told Sheldon last night we were watching the beginning, all the hype and all that, and I said, you know, someday I want to go back and watch the TV copies of that game. I never been able to. And I just think it's so great for those young people to experience that. What did they do it up to? The pregame was unbelievable. So it's just great for sports, and I love watching that stuff.
Middle row there, Brian.
Oh, sorry. Just looking at recruiting, it seems like over the last 10 years, anytime an Ohio kid commits to Michigan or a Michigan kid commits to Ohio State, they rarely flip back to their home state school. And I was just wondering if you had any thoughts on why that is, whether, you know, they make that decision only once they're sure they can, you know, you have to be sure about it if you commit to the enemy
I've never really been that thorough in thinking that through. To pull that trigger and say I'm going to go there, the peak that the young person's probably going to take, you better be right on. I'm sure the family's invited as well, so it's very observant. I never really noticed it, but now that I'm thinking about it, you're right.
And with guys like, you know, Damon Webb and Mike Weber, did you also recruit them harder knowing that Michigan might still be going after them the remainder?
Too. Oh, sure. I mean, you know your competition, you know who you're going against. I mean, there's many more. I recruit harder. I recruit more thorough, and I understand when that kid pulls the trigger that he's going to take some heat.
Yeah.
Second row left, Bill.
Urban, excuse me. You talked about how you have receivers out, your top 3 guys out of the game. Top four guys. And when we were practicing the other day, it seemed like you were maybe holding some linemen out, maybe just doing some high rep guys. But for JT, for a guy who's been around to sort of be in a mix with guys who maybe don't quite know what they're doing, do you have to preach, have extra patience for him when he's going through something like that?
I don't really have to preach much to JT. He's smarter than I am. He's smarter than our staff. I'm not saying that he's a very smart player. So I don't preach him very much. He understands the big picture of everything. And we have the 2,000 rep club, you know, where guys have played so much football that why would you put them in harm's way? I don't find his biggest thing is learning a new position and getting the thing reps to fix his weaknesses. The same with Gary Conley, same with Raekwon McMillan, same with Billy Price. Those are just guys off the top of my head who played a lot of football.
And JT obviously wants to get better too. Is it any more difficult to do that when he's surrounded by guys like that?
Much more difficult, but I don't know the answer. Other than, once again, he understands the big picture of it all.
Second row left, Ari.
Urban, 2 questions. One, this week a recruit came out and said that he didn't have very good experience here, and I don't know, because you can't comment specifically on kids themselves, but when somebody comes out and says something like that.
Sure, I can. I did read it. We have a lot of respect for him as a player. A lot. I was very disappointed in our staff that we didn't offer him earlier, and then I thought the treatment bad. That's like, you know, we don't do that on purpose. And that's his feelings. And I went back and talked to the staff about it because we don't want that to be out there. But when you have 1 out of 650 that say someone's treated bad, you know. But I know we did not offer him early. But we did want to offer. I mean, afterwards he really grew into a great player. And I think we missed on him early on, and that was very upset with our coaching staff, the recruiter in that area, and then position coach. So that's the way we do our business here. Okay. So yeah, we do address that. I want that out there.
Okay.
And then I went back.
It's probably tough if you can't come out, but I've got one other recruiting question completely different. You guys recruit Ohio very hard, obviously. That's always been start here, expand out. But in some senses, is it harder for an Ohio kid to earn an Ohio State offer than it might be from a kid who's further away because you understand that you have to be careful about early commitments? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, sometimes you have to offer a guy early out of state to get in the game, and I leave that more to the position coaches who understand that area. And if you want to get in the game, sometimes you have to answer, sometimes do that. I'm not going to say it's positive or negative, but in state, you just got to be very cautious because when that offer goes out, you can't pull it. You're in it.
A lot of times they're
right now out of state. If you offer a guy and he gets, he has guts. If he has a bunch of other offers, you can kind of just move on. In Ohio, you got to be very careful.
Because is there like a fear that in Ohio, if you offer, most kids here are gonna?
And some schools come in and offer, like 7 schools that offer probably about 100 players in our state. We can't offer 100 players in our state. They'll come back. Why do we not offer this guy? We certainly think he's a fine player. We're a little slower to offer.
Front row right, Austin.
Urban, throughout the spring, we've seen some of the guys who left early, Mike Thomas and Eli Apple coming out to practice. Are you still, spring ball's almost over, do you catch yourself wondering, trying to plug those guys in your lineup still, even though they're gone?
No, I did that on January when they told me they're leaving. I kind of went through a little through all the notes that ship has sailed. And the good thing is they're really helping our young guys. I watched them. Mike Thomas doesn't come here he comes here to head coach. I see Eli Apple out there talking to David Arnett. I think that's a big part of what separates us from a lot of places. Those kids all come back with the ownership. Taylor Decker's here for a lot of reasons. One, to lift and train, but also to help Isaiah Prince and Jamarco Jones. That's when you got a good pro. That's when you know you got a good thing going. Zeke was out here the other day. He was spending time with Mikey Weber and Briante.
When you touched on the injuries, and that's kind of made it hard for you to put together maybe that depth chart the way you want. Have replacing those 9 guys and the seniors, has that been more of a challenge than you anticipated, or is it going smoothly? How would you evaluate that?
No, I anticipated an issue. What I didn't anticipate is the 11 guys that were counting on not playing. I didn't know we got 4 receivers not go. I didn't know that. I kind of did, but you just don't even think that. Eric Smith and Cam Burrows would be limited. I'm trying to think who else is. Malik Burrows not taking a rep all so far. So there's guys that we're really counting on that have not been able to for injuries. So that's a thin. You watch practice sometimes and you just kind of wince and like, oh my goodness, where are we going to be here? But I think we'll be okay. Everybody gets healthy.
Front row left, Mitch.
Can you talk about the progress of the defensive line this spring, particularly that middle where
Just okay. Just okay. I think Mike Hill's fighting through a nagging high ankle sprain. The guys that are in the mix are Draymond or Jay Sean. Sorry, had a little midsection pull. He'll be fine. He just didn't practice much of it. It was an injury he had on Saturday, but he'll be fine. Trying to think who else is in there. Devon Hamilton has really improved. Landers has improved. So there's a lot of bodies just not really stepping up to the forefront yet.
Back row left, Bill.
Yeah, actually, the defensive line was my question. But Sam Hubbard in particular, has he been a guy?
He's doing very well.
Okay.
He's doing well. So was Jalen Holmes, who really made a little bit of a push. Because Tyquan's another guy we're telling us not practicing well.
And in terms of Sam, obviously he benefited from the extra attention that Joey got. He was a part-time guy. Do you think he can be a guy who could really emerge one of the next stars?
Yeah, he has to be. I really think he will too. You figure his journey was from, he was recruited because of dodgeball drill in Moeller High School. That's whatever that was in January or whatever year. Then he went from being a safety or a lacrosse player to safety to defensive line, to tight end to the defensive line. So he's really coming. What a great kid, great worker.
Far left, Matt.
This stage of the spring, you've kind of turned the corner on the back half of the practices. Does it change what you're looking for? What are you looking for at this point, like from these guys to finish?
Well, that's a good point. We had a long discussion about that last week was about chaos. 3,000 students in there, loud noise the entire time, and screaming, yelling. We on purpose try to create situations, environments. This I'll probably shut down practice for everybody on Thursday and Saturday this week, just because I want it extremely quiet. We have to get better now and find out. We still have a hard time putting together our depth chart. So, yes, to answer your question, we have done that. Has it been successful? Remains to be seen. But there's a theme to every week that we do around here. And the first one was install spring break. Next one was first to normal and just getting used to practice. Last week was creating as much chaos as we could throughout the week of practice to watch guys respond. And then this one, just because of where we're at, shut it all down and find out. We have to make some hard decisions coming up here this week. By Saturday, there's some guys who are going to play and some not going to play.
Front row right, Tim.
Yeah, Urban, speaking of that chaos and stuff, how do you watch video from Saturday and you see an individual offensive lineman just getting beat, just blowing up everything, and how do you as coaches make sense of that? Are you just looking at that individual battle, or are you looking at how Joe Burrow responded?
This is a message we have with the team today. If you're not playing well, there's only 3 reasons. One, you're really a poor player, really, really bad football player. And that's usually an excuse, because to make it to this level, you've done something very well. The number 2 would be you're extremely poorly coached. And I try to watch that closely. Once again, to get to this level as a coach, you either been a complete phony or somehow you got away with it, but I don't see that. You know, I watch closely. I'm not saying coaches don't make mistakes, but that's my judgment. And then the third one, there's something wrong. There's something wrong with chemistry in the unit room. There's something wrong with maybe your lifestyle. Maybe you're not getting your rest. Maybe you're not putting right things in your body. Maybe you don't. Maybe you shut up being Ohio State when you walk out the doors. You say, I quit thinking football. And so that's our job to address that and find out. So it's only one of those three things, and 90+% of them were the last one. You know, why did Curtis Grant, why did Stevie Bowen, why did all these kids play so great at the end of their last year? Because they fixed that number 3, because they were always good enough, but they didn't play good enough. So you have to find out why. That's a very complicated, that's something we spend an inordinate amount of time on, to find out the why is that kid not playing. It's too easy to say, you stink, you're no good. No, they don't. They've done something very well to be here.
Yeah.
And the reason I've spent so much time on that, you just got this 20 minutes where we just spent with our team about. Well, we have to find out that reason. And then you find out socially they're not doing what they're supposed to do. Maybe they're putting something, maybe they're doing something that young people and young adult people do that aren't conducive to being a major college football player. That's our job to find out. It's too easy to say you're not good enough. And we don't do that here.
But does youth factor in at that? I mean, is that
Sure.
Is that an
Great
excuse?
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Did you ever, when you were coming up and got into real football, did you ever play quarterback?
Real football, no.
Well, what I'm asking is, when you stand there and watch that though in front of you and watch those
Which
guys,
is years of experience.
yeah. I
It's
mean,
the most complex. You have 2 seconds to do the things that those guys are asked to do. I remember the Blue Jackets hockey coach came here one day. I think he's not there anymore, but he came in. And a great guy. I said, stand right here and watch what's happening. I mean, you got 2 seconds. By the way, where'd you throw the ball?
yeah.
So that's a very unique position.
And the other thing, Darren Lake, 3 or 4 years ago, I'm not sure y'all knew what he was going to be. But is he an example of like you talk about taking a player and finding a way to use him as opposed to you've got this
Spring of
system?
14 is when we found out. Were you listening to our meetings today? Because Eli Apple had an iron deficiency. He couldn't finish a drill.
Right.
We were ready to say he's not good enough to play here. Darren Lake, Ezekiel Elliott was a very mediocre running back his freshman year. If you remember, just flip on the Purdue tape. At Purdue, when he busts loose and he steps out of bounds after a 20-yard game.
Yeah.
Just average as can be. Stevie Miller, Curtis Grant, Michael Thomas, Ezekiel Elliott, like I just said, a bunch of average players that this is the spring of 14 where they showed up. We're not, maybe they will show up because we still have a few more practices, but the acceleration's got to be there. We're not accelerating like we did.
But do you have a guy, in your opinion, who can play like y'all played Darren Lake? I mean, because y'all figured out a way.
Yeah, Jerome Baker has the skill set. I think Early's in first, but because he's had a little more anticipation, doesn't have the same skill set. But Early's a pretty good player.
We got time for 2 more. One from Tony.
There's been a lot of talk about Austin Mack and Torrance Gibson this spring, but I'm wondering how the receivers on the other side of the field have done this spring, and how important is their development to the success of the season?
Yeah, it's James Clark, it's Terry McLaurin, and it's Paris Campbell. KJ Hill's the other guy, one of the 11 guys that can't practice because he practices some. But those guys are doing pretty good. Paris is doing decent, Terry's doing decent, so James Clark's having his best spring. So those 3 are coming on. Still not where we need to be.
Johnny Dixon is.
Johnny had his best scrimmage Saturday, probably his first scrimmage Saturday, and he did very well. So wasn't as good today, but he at least is making some progress. Most of his is health related.
And far left, Doug.
Urban, in an ideal world, do you like to find the 11 guys you want to play, your 11 starters on each side of the ball, and play them? Or in an ideal world, would you like to have so much depth that you do rotate? I know you rotate defensive line, you rotate receiver. Kerry Combs was maybe talking about the idea of rotating some corners this year. Is that what you would like to do, or do you like finding, these are our starters, let's go with them?
No, someone asked about the quarterback situation and how terrible that was last year. I thought it was fantastic. You have 2 great players that year. So I'd much rather have up there. You're having all constant meetings about who should start, as opposed to the guy that number 2 is not near what number 1 is. Because if something happens to number 1, your team goes like this. So I think the answer is real obvious for coach is we'd rather have a lot of depth answers and guys fighting for spots.
do you want your coaches to say maybe this guy's the starter, but I'm going to take him out in this series because this next guy behind him is almost just as good. Maybe that guy's getting a little tired. Like, do you want your position coach
That's when you
thinking
have a
like
great
that?
team. That's when you have a great team. And you know that Raekwon McMillan's almost as good as Curtis Grant. That's when life is really good as a coach. You can say, okay, going in there, and he does have a drop off.
Coach,
Thank you, guys.
thank you, Coach.
Sir?